Welcome to the Love Language Leadership Summit. I am Shannon Wooten, and with me today I have founder of Enterprincess, ambassador for highly sensitive people, corporate trainer and TEDx speaker, and I just have to tell you, she's trilingual in English, German, and French. Elena, you can correct me if I'm going to say this wrong because this is real life, and I'm just a real life human. Elena Herdieckerhoff?
Wow, I'm very impressed. That's actually, you aced it. I think it's probably the first time somebody who's not German aced it, so yay.
Okay, so I am German. My maiden name is Schultz, but I'm not fluent in trilingual and all that amazing, fantastic, brilliant stuff like you are. But happy to know that I got it right. That means a lot to me. Thank you for being here.
I am super excited to be with you here, Shannon, and talk all things love.
Yes. So I'm going to drop a little hint for all of you that are either present and watching with us on YouTube, hey, what's up? Or if you're listening with us audibly, I am personally working with Elena right now on a behind the scenes project. So kind of listen in, maybe pull some context clues out of things that I just said a second ago and deduce whatever you think it might be on your own. But when I thought about doing this project on love language, I couldn't imagine having anybody else contribute to this other than Elena to speak from her perspective, because right now what I'm doing with her is really all about my purpose, which is love. And she is pulling these threads of love out of me to the point where it's requiring that I go deeper. It's requiring that I be incredibly honest and transparent and even think outside the box, which I think love requires us to do at times.
Absolutely.
Nice. So when I was putting together, and I shared with all of you, if you haven't seen it yet or you haven't listened to it yet, go back and watch the episode 1 of the Love Language Summit and you can see the impetus for why I started this, but kind of all bleeds into and plays into why it was important to me and a no-brainer for me to have Elena here with us today. So the first question I want to ask you is, what made you say yes to this?
Well, I think collectively, we're moving into an age of increased love consciousness. And what I mean by that is culturally, we have a strong fear imprint in us, and that is manifesting itself in many different ways. And I think this is part of why so many things are erupting socially, culturally, politically, everywhere, is because we're in a shift from fear to love. And we're moving consciousness, we're moving our way of being. And I think, when I heard you speak about love, I wanted to contribute to that conversation about what is actually going on from a consciousness perspective and how love is leading the way to a new era for us as a collective, as humanity.
So I'm curious then, what is your vision then? Because you talk about having the collective conscious shift from a fear-based existence to a love-based existence. Can you unpack a little bit more of that? Because that's just such a juicy nugget that I'm doing this. So I want to know, can you kind of enlighten us?
I think we've been programmed as a whole that we're not enough, not good enough, not fast enough, not efficient enough. So a lot of our human drivers are based around the concept of not being worthy, not being good enough. And that also has manifested into a massive lack of self-love for us as individuals. And this, of course, has led to a lot of compensation mechanisms and a hustle culture where we're all constantly battling to justify our worthiness. And we have been, I think, programmed to become human doings rather than human beings. And this has been very detrimental. I think on there's no that's manifested in some anxieties, depressions, not feeling worthy, overworking, addictions, whatever it is. We've all been finding our way in a culture that is programmed to make us feel like we are ultimately not worthy. And I think what's happening now is we're awakening to our true potential and to the fact that there is another way to operate personally and collectively, and to save ourselves, save our planet, and save our future by moving into a different kind of reality. And that's a reality where we honor ourselves, and it starts with each and every one of us, we start to honor our true selves, where we acknowledge that we are enough, where we acknowledge that self-love is one of the most important practices in the world. And from there on out, radiate that confidence, that joy, that flow, that inner knowing. And from that place, recreate where we're going as a collective.
Wow. So what I'm hearing in there is something that you didn't say, but something that I feel is prevalent in our culture, that within that shift that you're talking about, within the shift of being focused on what everybody else is doing and, you know, keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak, and the comparisonitis and elements, what I hear you're saying is kind of like pulls us away from the love that we have that's forward facing within ourselves. So within that, then what's your perspective on validation?
Well, I think validation initially is a concept where we're looking outside of ourselves for approval. And it goes hand in hand with self-love, is that it becomes self-validation rather than other-based validation, because that means you are a free being, free to express your true nature, your truth of why you're here on this planet without ramifications. And I think that is where ultimately we all want to move towards, that ability to give ourselves the validation that we are good enough and we got this.
Oh, I love that so much. And I'm just curious of your perspective too, because I feel like as humans, that is a part of our human process to seek out validation, whether it's from ourselves or externally, right? And I think there's an important element to consider with validation. And it doesn't mean that you don't have love for yourself, especially if you're, you know, deferring to your spouse, your partner, your mother, your therapist to kind of stand behind you, somebody whose opinion actually matters to you, somebody who knows you and you know them. And I think that that's sometimes where we get confused in our culture, is that it's not wrong to want validation. It's just a matter of being mindful of who you're seeking it from. Is this a person that knows absolute shit about you? They know nothing about you, and you're allowing them to put you into a fear-based cycle with yourself of feeling like you're not enough, you need to compare yourself to them. And we start looking out into the world as, oh, but Tommy or Billy or Sally said that I'm not enough in this respect. Do you even care? Do you even know who Tommy, Billy, and Sally is? This isn't a matter of caring about their personhood and respecting the fact that they're a human being. It's a matter of where are you, investing yourself? And are you investing yourself with people that you don't know and don't know you? And in which case, why are you doing that? Where is the love for your own self in realizing, putting all your eggs in one basket, realizing where are you putting your eggs, right? In the validation of, I'm so fearful that Tommy, Billy, and Susie aren't going to like me, but who are Tommy, Billy, Susie to you anyways? So validation, what I hear you saying is huge, is validation is not wrong, and it does not put us in the fear-based behavior. It's where we're putting our focus in the validation.
Yes. And maybe even to shift the perspective that if we look for validation on the outside, what I would say is, if we first validated ourselves, what we're looking from the outside is perspective. And perspective makes us grow. So if somebody challenges you lovingly and says, look, there's a room for growth here for you, that's a perspective. That's not necessarily validation, because ultimately you call the shots. And that's where it comes down to that self-validation. Is whatever perspective is being offered to me, is that something that excites me to grow, or is that something that makes me, contract and collapse inside? Then you know where to put that piece of information.
Yes. And I think that what you're saying is, reflect it back to yourself. What's your actual perspective on this is a great segue into my next question for you then. So then what does love mean to you?
Love for me is a lens. I think more than anything, it's a way of looking at life, of looking at yourself, of looking at other people. It's a lens of ultimately the deepest sense of forgiveness for everything that is, because it's that lens that allows you to be in total acceptance. And for me, I think when you come from a place of love, ultimately it leads you to that place of peaceful acceptance of everything that is. And from that place, once you've accepted whatever is, then you have the impetus to create and to change and to do new things, because then you have your full power with you.
And so can you just unpack for me as well, because you're pointing out all these beautiful nuggets here, is, you know, what does it mean for you then to be in your power?
To be in your power is for me to be in your alignment, where you know that you have given yourself permission to be enough as you are, to accept and love and forgive yourself as you are. And, you know, loving and forgiving yourself is a daily practice, because we all sometimes want to be more perfect than we think we are, and we want to strive for more, and we are very self-judgmental. And it's owning our being with love, and then having the ability, once you own your being with love, to accord that freedom and kindness to others.
Wow. And that kind of blends in so beautifully with what you were saying at the onset too, because if you're in allowance of yourself in the moment, and you're accepting of who I am right now is in alignment with who I am, as long as I allow for that, then it all goes back to that, you know, you validating yourself, you having a perspective, or maybe even a loose, I don't want to say a hold, because when people hear hold, it sounds constricting, but just a grasp on, you know, who you are at your core is something that is in continual evolution.
Yes, absolutely. I would absolutely agree with that.
And it's interesting too, because a practice that I've actually instituted with myself for my own self-love. And I think when we think about love, it seems so big, right? We think about, you know, weddings, we think about births of babies, we think about momentous occasions. We don't allow ourselves to drill it down into the acts of love every day, right? How are you treating yourself with love every day, from the minute you get up to every action that you take, every step that you take, even the missteps that you take, right? And so one of the practices that I've actually instituted with myself, being somebody who, you know, manages their business online, is that, you know, the post and obsess over who's liking, who's commenting, who's engaging, right? And so one of my practices that, when you're talking, really put it into perspective for me of, oh, this is a little act of love that I give to myself every single day, is having perspective on the relationship that I was having with social media, where it was, if I post something and it doesn't immediately have 15 likes, then it's a dud. Or if I go live in my stories, or go live and it doesn't have this many views or any engagement, then it's a dud. And instead allowing myself to love myself, to know that if it's coming through me, it's for me. Yes. And it's not just for me, it's meant to share, especially if I get the inclination to do so. Yes. And now if I post, I don't have to sit there and watch the tally. I don't have to obsess over who's liking it or who is responding to it. I can trust that, from my perspective, I was giving with the highest of intention, and that little act of love is allowing me not to obsess every single day. And of course, you can go deeper and you can analyze, you know, well, what does that say about your relationship, codependency, validation, all those things that you were talking about before. Yeah. But I think it's an important thing to consider, is on the grand scale, love is, I believe, it's the healer of everything. It's at the epicenter of everything if we allow it. But I think sometimes we forget the little acts of love that we can gift to ourselves every day, and we overlook them.
And you know what you just pointed out, I think that goes hand in hand with these acts of love, is the surrender of the outcome. You know, like if you help the little old lady across the street, does it matter if she says thank you? No, it doesn't. You know, it doesn't even matter, because it's the act of love that's the gift for you, not the outcome. And I think when you allow yourself to surrender the outcome, then you have a much easier time being present with yourself.
And so what would you say then that perspective then grants you in relationship to other people? Like, you're in a relationship with another person, and maybe if it's a old lady you don't know. I love that example. You don't even know her, and you're like, wow, I just love doing that. I love the way that made me feel. It's interesting, because I feel like sometimes we get into this combat with ourselves about love, that it needs to be completely without any benefit to ourselves. Whereas, like, when I give, you know, somebody who's sitting on the side of the street, my husband and I have this continual argument. He's like, you do not need to give every person you see on the street money. And I'm like, I do. I have the money and it feels good. And I don't care. I don't go into that whole convoluted like, well, what if they're going to use it for alcohol? And what if they're going to use it for drugs? I don't give a fuck what they use it for. Yes. I have it to give, and that feels good for me. And then we can sometimes go into that argument with ourselves that it needs to be completely of service and without anything for us.
Yes. And I think that's an interesting comment, because I think true service is circular, meaning it's about giving and receiving. Otherwise, to me, that's not service. True works of service always benefit all involved, and that includes you as the giver, or you maybe as a receiver, whichever the case may be. And if you are either always giving and not receiving, or always receiving and not giving, then you're actually not in the right energy of service.
Wow. I just had that blew my mind. So go back and listen to that. Service is circular, and you get to give and receive. So I keep asking you to do this, but for those that are listening and they're feeling confronted by that, right? How would you unpack that for them then to allow them the opportunity to reframe that thinking, instead of it being, I have to always be giving and never receiving, to allow themselves to have it become circular so that they can also receive and still feel coming from a place of service, from a place of purpose, from a place of authenticity?
Yeah, I think, culturally, it's considered better to be a giver than a receiver. So we're all programmed to be more comfortable in the role of the giver, because that's the role that is benevolent, kind, generous. And receiving has received this negative connotation that if you receive something, then you're selfish, you're a taker, you're in it for you. But the truth is, if you're a giver and nobody takes, what happens? You broke the cycle of life. And if you refuse to receive from people, you're refusing their gift. And that to me is not an act of love. If you're refusing to receive, then you are not really in the energy of love. And that's a big shift for people, because they think giving is the energy of love, but so is receiving. They are of equal value.
I'm dying right now. For those that are watching on YouTube, you can tell. For those that are listening, my heart is exploding out of my chest. I'm on the verge of tears. What I hear you saying is the common thread throughout this conversation, and it's so beautiful. And right now, what's coming to my brain is I've never thought of it this way before. But honestly, when you drill it down, is that love is a perspective. Yes. And the rate at which you are willing to receive is the rate at which you are willing to validate your own perspective that you get to have. You get to have it, not just give it, but that feeling that you're giving away, how often are you bringing it to you? Whoa.
Huge, right? It's a huge difference.
Wow. So that, again, another beautiful segue into my next question then is, then what does love mean to you about other people?
So what do you mean about other people? So rephrase that for me. How do you mean that?
So in reference to what you just brought up, which I think is brilliant, is the art of receiving. Well, in my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in order to receive it, it's coming from somewhere, whether it's from you, right? Yes. Because how often are we actually bringing that love to ourselves all day long? Yes. So from Sex and the City, if you guys haven't seen the movie, Jennifer Hudson says it. She has a little keychain that has the word love on it. She's like, I'm bringing my love to me all day long. And actually that what we were talking about, that little act that I do when I post something, because I know my automaticity is to obsess of like, oh my gosh, do people like it? Was this stupid? Does anybody care? If they don't care, it's not engagement. I'm never gonna, be able to sell a program again. Like it goes into this falling off a cliff idea.
Huge production. Yeah, I know.
All the drama, as someone that we're gonna have speaking on here, actually, she always says to me, the drama du jour, which I love. But yeah, all the drama du jour. But so a part of that is, what does it mean to you about other people? For me is, with your reception of love.
Yes. So I think
and engagement, right?
I think
and engagement.
Receiving is a muscle that we need to train. And other people are our training equipment for that muscle. Because everything in life comes to us at the hands of other people. Mm-hmm. Opportunities, relationships, love, any exchange is always through another energy field. So really, you're merging two energy fields in every contact you have. And to make that circular, the giving and receiving, you need to have within yourself a place where you've cultivated enough self-worth that you are able to receive and you can stand it being good. And this is what's hard, is to stand it being good. We can all stand pain and trauma because we know that. But to stand love, to accept it, to accept generosity without feeling we need to rush in to go right back into giving so that, you know, the accounts are leveled. It's really in our relationship to others, it starts within, to cultivate that receptivity muscle so that we can even let them into our true selves, because only giving is a defense mechanism to love, because that means you're not allowing an exchange of energies. So only when you cultivate the self-worth in you to receive can you be in true energy exchange or relation with someone else, whether that's for a second walking someone across the street or for a lifetime as your partner.
Wow. The brilliance is like shooting smoke out of my ears, guys. It's just opening up doorways and channels in my brain. And I love the way that you're articulating this. So I know what I infer from you saying to stand it being good. But for those that are listening, can you just extrapolate and expand upon that?
Yes. Yes. So I think because that's also the history of humanity, we are all fantastic at weathering the storms of fear, trauma, whatever it is. And however we cope with that might be dysfunctional, but we cope. Now, when we actually move into a paradigm where things get easier and where we get love, no strings attached, attention, abundance, care, whatever it is that almost makes us feel like something is wrong and we're waiting for the other shoe to drop. And so if you walk around waiting for the other shoe to drop, basically what that means is you can't stand it being good. You have a ceiling of how much good you can accept. And if it goes beyond that ceiling, it's like, okay, something is going to happen any minute now. And you take yourself back to your perhaps uncomfortable comfort zone where things are not that good. And so it's about always upping the ceiling of how good things can get and how much happiness we allow ourselves to stand. And that works hand in hand with the more self-love we bring into our life, the more we're able to stand things being good and better than we know them to be.
Wow. So what I hear you saying, and you can, obviously correct me if I'm wrong, is that we are an equal energetic match for which it is that we open ourselves up to. So if your perspective has a threshold of the amount of love now, and for those of you listening and watching, put this through your own filter, right? Yes, we're having an umbrella conversation around love, but this applies to everything. This is not just about love. This is about
especially money, by the way. This is applies to money, especially money is also works in the same way.
Exactly. This applies to wealth. This applies to your health. This applies to relationships. Like if you're the type of person that, goes through friendships, right? Like, oh, this is the threshold that I have for myself of how good it gets to be before the bottom drops out and shit falls apart. And I love this. And I don't know if this is intentional for you or not, but you're so cyclical in this that it all leads us back again to that perspective. How deeply are you willing to love yourself? How openly are you willing to validate the things that you need and your desires? How expansive and energetically open and bountiful and limitless and compassionate is your self-perspective that you are becoming an energetic match and in alignment with the goodness that you allow yourself to receive?
That is 100% true and beautifully pulled together. I absolutely agree with that. And it comes down to, are you willing to let yourself be the love of your life?
Oh, pause right there. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening to this, pause all the way back to the point where you said, and I'm paraphrasing, how much goodness can you stand, basically, and re-listen to this all the way up to, are you willing to be the love of your life? Holy crap, because this is something that I have been for you listening and watching, contending with and dancing with for the past few years of my life, because we go through that again. You're beautifully wrapping up this conversation with a bow here, and making it all relevant and cyclical. Is it all goes back to, what does love mean to you? What meaning are you giving it? Are you allowing yourself to have it? Because it's always, from our perspective, in my experience, externally driven. How many people do I have in my life that I have love with and for and respect from? It's always external. But what about the love you have with your damn self?
It's like last on our list, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think this is highly important, and again leads into the next question that I have for you, which is, we operate our businesses in the online space.
Yes.
And we are showing up online. That means to do that. And we're operating behind the scenes. And given that we have this overarching conversation today about love, but also how you're bringing it into you and how you're putting, you know, if you will, your spotlight out into the world, your lighthouse out into the world of, I'm accepting of love, I'm ready to receive all the things. How does love influence what you do as a business owner?
Yeah, that's a really important question, because there is such a thing as operating your business from a place of love. Mm-hmm. So the first thing that means is you're operating your business through a lens, and that lens is working through your heart versus your head. So that has to be your fundamental and first lens. And to operate from your heart, it means that your heart actually needs to be a fully integrated part of you. We're all much more comfortable operating from our logic, from our launch plans, from our social media stats. But what does it actually mean to trust our innate heart guidance? And so for me, that's a shift that happens from the head to the heart. And I read this beautiful quote once that says, the longest journey you will ever take is the journey from your head to your heart. And for me, that is the truth of how you shift your perspective from a hustle culture that is metric driven to a culture where you are mission based, where you are truly heart based, and that is in the giving of your offers to the world and in the receiving of the abundance for those offers you put into the world. So there too, you need to allow yourself to be in the circle of life of giving and receiving. And that's one of the fundamental business basics when you operate from your heart, is to make sure that you are circular. If you're not circular, you're going to go broke. Mm-hmm. Very simple, right? So it's conceiving your offers not from a place of this will sell or this is the right thing, but what lights me up? What is a gift to my audience? What is a gift to me? What would I love to talk about, do, share, create? And then trust, surrender, and receive the right people for you and receive their abundance, which is just their way of an energy exchange with you for what you conceived from your heart.
Mm-hmm. And this is so true, right? Because it has that connotation of like how we plant the seed is how the tree is going to grow, basically. So, excuse me, if from conception, the intention is not to have this equal energetic exchange, to understand that you're coming with good intention to provide value from a heart-based place, for acts of service, for co-creation, for connection. If the intention is not that, then what your reception is going to be a mirror of that.
Yes. Your reception is going to be struggle.
Yeah.
Ultimately, because then if you operate from that place, that's a place of scarcity. So that place of emotional scarcity will mirror itself back to you in other forms of scarcity or strife or difficulty or hard to work with clients or any of these things. It will manifest itself because a business is an extension of your energy field. So what's true for you is true for your business ultimately. So everything I said before, the same can be applied one-to-one to how you operate a business, because it's the same source. You're the source.
Yeah, because can you imagine, for anybody that's listening right now and feeling like they're in the struggle of their business, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, Elena, but I think most entrepreneurs can relate to that. We have those moments where it's like nothing's happening, and then you skyrocket, and then you plateau, and then maybe you skyrocket again, and then you skyrocket again, and then you plateau, and it's this continual evolution. But if you don't start from a place of, I love me, and I am mindful of my audience, and I love them, then if you're starting from a deficit with yourself from the onset, then who's going to want to buy from you? Think about that. Like if you're showing up from a place of scarcity and you're showing up from a place of impending doom and failure and are already predicting the negativity and the malice and the discouragement that you're going to blame and shame and fill yourself with regretment and fear and failure about, then what is the energy you're putting out into the world? Oh, I've already failed. Oh, this already is not going to relate to anybody. Oh, no one's going to want to buy from me. I am not even all that sure about me. You're not going to have people standing out your door going, oh shit, let me buy that. You seem really confident. No, I got enough of that for myself, thanks.
Yes, 100% true. Because as you rightly say, if you're the originator of the business energetically, which you are, and that is off, then results will always be off. So whenever I've experienced things in my business that were perhaps not to my liking, rather than obsessing over the strategy, the funnel, the launch, the Facebook ads, whatever, is I looked within. Where am I not in alignment with what's true for me? And where am I coming from a place of need versus a place of love? And that's a very big distinction. It's like, you know, when you go to the supermarket and you're hungry, you'll buy everything and you buy a lot of stuff that you don't need. And
yeah.
You'll end up feeling awful. You'll buy lots of unhealthy stuff because you're just like, I'm hungry. But if you actually come from a place of being satiated, you'll make great choices for yourself, right? So you want to also, even if your business is not going well for whatever reason, you want to come from a place of emotional fulfillment where you're satiated so that you can actually be in the right energy exchange between give and take, and not like hungry, I need to make these sales numbers, otherwise I got to close my business. If that's already the energy, then you've lost your connection to yourself, not to your clients, to you, right? So if that's the case, if you're really moving into hustle to fix things, I would encourage anyone to move back out of the hustle and into self. Ramp up your self-love. Ramp up what you need to do to feel whole and complete and raise your vibration, but ultimately trusting the flow of your life and trusting that if you drop back into your heart, you'll figure it out, because this is your true guidance.
Wow. Beautifully put. I can't imagine adding anything else after that. All roads lead back to you. That love is a perspective, and you really truly need to fall in love with yourself first to be a good receiver as well as a good giver. Beautiful. So for those that have listened today or those that are here with us watching, thank you. What do you have going on right now, or where can people find you to get with you, work with you, talk to you, get all of the Elena goodness?
Well, it's interesting that we are having this conversation, because my main business is I help people do TEDx talks. I'm a TEDx speaker coach, but I've just launched a passion project, which is talking about love consciousness. And you can find that, literally it launched a week ago, so your timing is impeccable. And I launched that on elenaherdieckerhoff.com, and it's all about how we can move from fear into love consciousness, both in our personal lives and in our businesses, if we are indeed entrepreneurs.
Holy divine timing, Batman. So is this a program? Is this a one-on-one coaching opportunity? What is it?
Yeah, so basically I talk in general what I believe love consciousness to be about, and I have a few select one-on-one programs, and there's a group program that's going to launch sometime later as well. So tune in to check it out. And there's a little course there, especially for people who are sensitive, empaths. Free course, you can check it out, how to kind of drop into that frequency of love.
Yes. So go check that out. You said ElenaHerdieckerhoff.com, right?
Oh my God, like you saying my name like a pro. I'm so amazed.
Let it roll off my tongue here today, you fellow listeners here. And as she mentioned, she does have some, what did you say, like a question and a Q&A for highly sensitive people. Is that what is that what you said?
No, I have a free mini course.
Oh, okay, yeah.
For sensitive people about that. So anybody who wants to take that to kind of drop into the frequency of love consciousness, and you're a sensitive person or an empath, this will be right up your street.
Yes, and for those of you that aren't really sure, if you're hearing that for the first time, go and check out Elena's, correct me if I'm wrong with the title on it, Highly Sensitive People TED Talk?
Yeah, so my TED Talk is called The Gentle Power of Highly Sensitive People. Mm-hmm. And we're almost about to celebrate 2.5 million views on that.
Woo!
So join the crowd. Yeah.
For anybody listening, it is impactful. It is inspiring. And it taught me to get to know that side of myself and respect that side of myself and love that side of myself and receive that side of myself. All the things that Elena has shared with you here today about perspective and validation and compassion and allowance. So a big thank you to you, the audience, for joining us.
Yes, lots of love to everyone listening.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to you, Shannon, because we only recently met, but you are a burst of light and love and joy to be around. And I am beyond fortunate that we got to connect in our secret project. And as well, of course, here today, you are a magnificent human being and you have so much love and joy to share. So thank you for being you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Thank God I have it cold because all these tissues, I'm like on the verge of crying like 35 minutes. Thank you so much. It is my honor. For the audience, please see the show notes for a special freebie from me if you're tuning in via YouTube. And for today's guest links on how you can connect with Elena. And because love is meant to be shared and sharing is caring, if you loved this conversation, please feel free to share this with a friend or someone that you think may relate to this or enjoy this message, or message us directly with your questions. Otherwise, thank you for stopping by. It means the world to us. Be good to yourself for fuck's sake, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.